Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another installment of BJI's Judges in the Community Interview Series. Today, I'm joined by Pat E. Morgenstern-Clarren of the Northern District of Ohio, who seeks to share with the judicial world her inspiring youth-based naturalization ceremony efforts. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
First of all, I just wanted to thank you so much for being here and letting us all in on the magic you've been able to create. Before we dive in, would you mind just speaking a little bit more about who you are, where you sat, and a little bit about your judicial history?
Absolutely. I was a United States bankruptcy judge for the Northern District of Ohio, being appointed in 1995, and then I retired in May of 2017. And before that, I was in private practice in Cleveland, Ohio, with a at that point, a medium-sized law firm, doing complex litigation and healthcare.
Got it. Thank you so much for that. It's so nice to meet you. And I think it's time to dive right in. I know for a fact that you and your colleagues at your courthouse surely do so much good work with the community in so many different ways. But today, in highlighting one effort in particular, what brings you here to speak about and reveal to the judicial world?
Well, what I'm here to talk about is a ceremony that I created for teenagers who are becoming new citizens. And this was something that I had never thought about until I was presiding over a naturalization ceremony for adults. And a young woman came up to me and she wanted to know, now that her mother had been sworn in as a citizen, was she automatically a citizen or was there something else she had to do? She was particularly hoping she didn't have to take a test. I didn't know the answer to that. So we walked over together to the Immigration and Naturalization officer who was presiding over her part of the ceremony and asked the question. And what I found out really surprised me. If you're 18 or over, you have to take the test and then you have to be sworn in by a federal judge. If you're under 14, you don't have to do anything. You're just automatically a citizen. But if you're in that middle area, 14 to 17, then you have to be sworn in, but you don't get sworn in by a federal judge. You're sworn in at the immigration office, which is generally just like you'd expect in a government office building, not much going on, linoleum floor, clerk at the end of a window, no sort of hoopla the way we have for adults. So she was happy because she found out she didn't have to take a test. But I was thinking, this isn't how we should be welcoming this group of new citizens. We should be doing something special for them because these are the people whose lives have been uprooted at least as much as the lives of their parents. And we should be saying to them, we're delighted that you're here. Welcome. We are all now Americans. So that was where the idea started.
And from the beginning, how did you go about implementing it? What were your first steps and how did it sort of evolve throughout the process?
Well, the first thing I did was talk to the Immigration and Naturalization Service, because if they didn't think it was a good idea, then nothing was going to happen.
Right.
People that I spoke to were incredibly enthusiastic about it and thought it was a great idea and said they'd be happy to do anything. So what I needed them to do was kind of get together a bunch of teenagers who fell into this category so that we would have enough people to have a ceremony. And because our district doesn't have a lot of new immigrants, we're very unlike, for example, the California districts that have thousands of people in a football stadium. We have maybe 40, 50 people at a time, and we do that maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So we had to wait to get that group of people together. And then I just started thinking, if I were in this situation, what would I want someone to say to me? I decided that the important thing was for this age group to hear from others in their age group. So I picked as a theme, young Americans welcoming other young Americans. And then I looked to the arts to try to see what I could pull from that might be fun and meaningful to this new group. So one ceremony, I had a string quartet from Cleveland Institute of Music, which is a wonderful music school, college here in Cleveland. One, I had a jazz quartet that was made up of high school students who enjoyed performing together. And what I said to everybody was, you pick your own music, but I want it to be uplifting and happy. I want everything about this day to be positive.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I did was I wanted to involve some kind of poetry, in part because my daughter is a poet. And through her, I've really come to appreciate poetry more than I ever did before. What I did was invite a high school student to read the poem that Richard Blanco wrote for President Obama's inauguration. And so that was what happened. A very lovely young woman who was a part of the Shaker Heights Theater Department. And she was willing to do it, and I was delighted. And then I was able to explain to the people who had assembled who Richard Blanco was, a wonderful poet who himself was an immigrant. He was born in Cuba. His family moved to Spain. He came here. He was naturalized. And as he wrote in a letter to me, he remembered his naturalization exactly as I had just described it to you. A dingy office building, and linoleum floors, and not much of anything. So then the other piece of it was to have somebody sing my favorite song when I think about America, and that is, "This land is your land, this land is my land," because I think that says it all. And however, only the beginning verses. Some of the later verses get a little dicey, but the first two verses are really just what I wanted somebody to do. So I did that. I found all the people. I offered to pay out, out of my pocket, because this is not something that our federal budget would pay for. I just want to make that clear. I offered to pay the musicians. I didn't want them to have to do something without pay, and they all turned it down. Every one of them had a story about somebody in their family who was an immigrant, and they all wanted to do something to honor that person in their family and all of the other people who they knew, or who they had read about, or who they admired, who were themselves immigrants. So I put all that together, and then I invited one of my colleagues, Judge Jessica Price Smith, to join me, just because I thought it would be good for everybody to see a couple different looking people who were on the federal bench. And other than that, I think the only other thing I did was I bought a gigantic map of the world and put it up on a whiteboard, and put a red star next to Cleveland, Ohio, which is where we were. And then I invited, as we went along, I invited each of the teenagers to come up and put a pin in the spot that they had come from. And of course, it was all around the world. We have people who come from everywhere. So it was just great to see how for them to see that they weren't the only ones who came from far away and in difficult circumstances, and to just, again, to feel as if they had bonded with the people who were becoming new citizens with them, as well as the people who were already here. And then I wrote up a program and took it from there. That was it.
It's all so beautiful. Your story with musicians just really makes me smile, because you can clearly feel how much the community felt the magic that you were creating. And it's such a powerful thing. And I'm curious how it came to impact you as an individual, being so involved and so passionate about it from the beginning.
It made me happy. What I can say is that if you ask any federal judge what's the best part of her job, no matter which unit of the court she's in, I would bet you a lot of money that they'll all say naturalization ceremonies, because they are so joyful. They are the only part of these positions that you can count on to be happy occasions where everybody comes a little bit nervous, sits through the ceremony, and then walks away with a big smile thinking, I did it. I managed to do this. I'm an American citizen. So being able to extend that feeling to this middle group of new citizens, I felt great about it. I loved doing it.
Absolutely. And of course, the people really at hand are the young people that you're bringing this joy to. Did you ever have any moments of witnessing the impacts that it had on them, and how it inspired them in any certain ways?
The only thing, there's no follow-up. Once you somebody in and they go off and they lead their life. So there was no opportunity for me to do that. But what I did enjoy is that after every ceremony, I always invite the new citizens, and in this case, both the new citizens and their parents or family members, to come up and take a picture with me if they'd like to. So I think of myself in the family photo albums of all these people from all
Wow.
these different countries. And I think when they open up their photo album and they tell their families or their friends or their own children about how they became a citizen, there I am. So in that sense, I feel very much a part of the history of everybody who I've ever sworn in, but especially this group of new citizens.
I think you're changing lives. I think it's a beautiful thing to look back on and remember forever for these young people. And it's also something that I think could have incredible impacts across the country, especially in states like you said, California or New York, where immigration is even more prominent. So looking to spread it further, do you have any advice for judges and courthouses who might want to implement something similar? Places to start or things to keep in mind, maybe?
Well, I'm happy to share any of the materials that I put together. Maybe the most useful would be the program that we did, which has everything in place. And then on the back of it, I included the names of each new citizen in the country that he or she came from. And other than that, I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested. I really had hoped that it would be carried on in our district, although that has not happened. So I would be very delighted if anybody anywhere was interested in doing something similar. I think it is such an opportunity to make that connection between the people who are here and have been here for a while and the people who are coming here, so that everybody says we are all in this together. That's my view of the world and of these ceremonies. And I want to put in a plug for the INS, because I could not have done this without their enthusiastic participation. They were absolutely wonderful for everything that I ran past them, and they'll be more than happy, I'm quite sure, to help anybody else who's interested in doing something like this.
That's amazing. It's really just such a unique endeavor. I've never heard of anything like it, and I'm inspired even just hearing you talk about it. It's incredible. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing where it began and how it affected the community. And I just really appreciate hearing from you today. It's been amazing.
It's been my pleasure entirely. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much.